Welcome everyone to Life Beyond 6 Feet. I'm Damien from RKB Paranormal, and this week I have another podcast guest with us on. This week I have Steve and Megan from For the Booze podcast. Guys and gals, welcome to Life Beyond 6 Feet.
Well, thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
We're
Absolutely.
excited and looking forward to this. We had you guys on last year, and
Yeah,
we've been looking
yeah.
forward to this.
So it's took a whole minute, but we finally got it set up. Unfortunately, I'm by myself, Josh. Josh can't make it every single episode, so
Oh,
90% of the time it's just me, but hey, that works too. So
Oh no.
that's okay. We'll make it work.
all right, so I'm just going to kind of dive right into this whole thing. Whose initial idea was it to start a podcast on the paranormal?
Well,
That was
I
good.
did not want to do a podcast.
She was staunchly against it, which is how I ended up doing another podcast before this one.
Yep.
Was
Uh-huh.
I was all in. I had been listening to podcasts for a while, and I was like, I can do this. And
Right.
I started another one because I approached her with the idea of, because we watch a lot of paranormal stuff. That's kind of, I would say, our main source of entertainment.
Mhm.
And I was like, we could just talk about this every week and just do what we're already doing.
Yeah.
I don't know if she had it in her head that it was like going to be like a video format thing, but
Right.
she
It wasn't.
did not want to be a part of it at all. So like, it was my idea, and
Yeah.
I beat her
Right.
down eventually. She got that.
I did.
I'm still working on my wife just to join me for one episode. So
Aw.
maybe I can eventually get her there. And then we have
Well-
that similarity too. Well, that's kind of our go-to entertainment. We watch all the ghost shows, even if we don't really like them that much, we still watch them. So
Yeah.
Once you get her on one, she'll be hooked though, because once she did one, she was like, "Yeah, this is fun."
Yeah, well, we did it in the paranormal genre. He had a music podcast before, and I was on like 2 of the episodes.
okay.
And it was just like a guest on one of the episodes, and it was, I don't know, it was just very strange.
Talking about our trumpet days.
Yeah. I played the trumpet.
So uncool.
I know.
All right, so you decided to do a podcast on the paranormal. Like, what was the reasoning behind that? It was something you guys have always interested in, or you were just like, "Hey, we watch these shows, let's talk about it."
Well, we, like we said, have watched these shows together since we met, and we really wanted to do a true crime podcast.
Okay,
However, that is a huge corner of podcasts.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty much done to death.
yeah,
Right.
there wasn't very many paranormal podcasts.
I think originally for me, it goes all the way back to, I mean, we talked about it in the episode tonight. When I was about 8 years old, I remember going to the library and coming across a picture of the brown lady of Raynham Hall.
mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, man, I am so freaking scared. But this is super cool. And then
Right.
throughout my life, I've had paranormal experiences here and there. But as I started discovering podcasts, it never really dawned on me that it was something I could do until I started gathering recording equipment for music. And I was like,
Mhm.
I have all this stuff to do this. I
Yeah.
can make this happen. And I knew that I wanted to do a show with my wife. And I just had to think about like, what's the one thing that we shared in common? I knew she loved true crime, so I pitched her that, and she was like, "Oh, I want to do a podcast." And then I pitched her the idea of the paranormal, and she still didn't want to do it, but I kind of kept that on the back burner for, I don't know, like 4 months,
Yeah.
until one day my other podcast, I was kind of getting tired of doing it because it was interview based and it was hard to get people to follow through with their commitment.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of was like, look, if we just do one and you don't like it, we don't have to do it anymore.
Right.
And I got her. And after the first one, she was, that's when she was like, I really enjoy this. We're going to keep doing this. And hey,
Right.
for a year ago, now we're still here.
Yeah.
There you go. And you guys got a really good podcast going too. Like you guys, I don't get a lot of free time, so I don't get to listen to a lot of other podcasts. I have listened to a few episodes. Obviously, I listened to the one we were on, but
As you should.
Yeah.
right. I don't know about you guys, but you guys go back and listen to everything and kind of critique yourself after the fact, like after you've actually
yeah.
got it posted and stuff.
Yes, we sure do.
Yeah, I'd say we're probably pretty critical of ourselves.
Well,
Yeah.
he's the editing guy, so he puts the entire show together. He writes it now too. In the
Yeah.
Okay.
beginning, I wrote the spooky story part, and he wrote the history. And I have taken the promotion at work, so I'm at work a lot more now. So
Right.
he's been doing most of it, and
Right.
I just kind of sit down, I read, and that's it. And then he does the rest.
I have a chance to listen to some podcasts here and there, which is how I listened to you guys, which I really like your podcast. I've actually been telling a lot of people about it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. But yeah, I spend a lot of our time, well, my time researching, writing, and then basically my entire weekend is all set for editing. I edit, oof, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 hours worth.
Oh man.
Well, we started getting into sound effects about, I don't know, 6 months ago, 8 months
Hmm.
ago, because we weren't an interview based podcast. So we wanted to give the story a little extra something. So
Right.
we decided on kind of, since we were going to be a story based show, that we could add some sound effects into, I don't know, and make it a little richer of an experience, make it more immersive for listeners. And I
Right.
love doing it. I love doing it. It's
Yeah,
frustrating. Like, don't talk to me while I'm doing it. I get very frustrated, and you
Right.
know,
that's
it,
very true.
it's hard. It's hard to do, especially with the kids needing something all the time. But I do
Hmm.
enjoy doing it, and I do like listening back to our shows. It was the day that I realized I was like, man, this is actually pretty good. I was pretty happy with that. I got pretty excited, and yeah, and I just love doing.
And see, and that's one reason I decided not to worry about editing anything, is I know I'd get frustrated and I'd spend like so many hours doing this. I just said, you know what? I'm just going to go raw and uncut. And that's what I do with our YouTube videos too, for our, for our team. And I
Mhm.
actually, it's probably going to sound crazy, but I edit everything on my cell phone.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. Like what I'll do is I'll upload it to my laptop and I'll convert it to a file. Then I'll send it to my cell phone and do everything there. Cause I don't like the laptop. I just don't,
Yeah, it's
I
not
don't
my
like,
favorite.
I don't like it. So I just do everything from my phone. I feel like I have more control and I can do more from my phone. So
If I didn't need the laptop for finding like the sound effects and I could get away with it on my phone, I would definitely do it.
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it
would definitely do it.
right. So you say you're more of a story type podcast. So you have obviously had my team on for an interview. Have you guys done any more interviews since then?
I think after you, we interviewed East Coast Paranormal, and they were
Nice.
pretty cool too.
Yeah.
They were great, and I think we reached out to a few more people, and we had people agree to come on, but then they just never showed up. Uh, we
Ah,
we were in touch with Paranormal Quest, and they agreed to come on, and then they kept saying, "Oh, we're busy, maybe later," and then they kind of ghosted us after that.
oh man.
Not to be all punny, but
Right.
they kind of ghosted us. We did reach out to Amy's Crypt, and we got turned down right away. So I
Oh,
think that's we somewhere along the way we kind of like we decided we would do interviews. We're not against doing interviews. We'd like
right.
to have teams come on,
Absolutely.
but we didn't want to have to hinge on like what we're doing on that. Like we needed to be able to come up with something
Yeah.
that could move forward with or
Right.
without people coming on the show. So that's when we decided like we would be kind of like almost like a destination cast where we would talk about locations and the history and the stories and evidence and listen to EVPs. And I think that's kind of how we got there.
Yeah. Well, we started out doing a lot of shows,
Mhm.
and that's how we
Hmm.
started. We did, Ghost Hunters
Hmm.
and
Paranormal
Ghost
Nightmare.
Adventures, Paranormal Nightmare. And then we switched to an interview with them. And then, I mean, we did a few locations, but I think after doing a bunch of that, we realized how much we enjoyed doing the location part of it.
Right. And I know y'all did one episode on one of my favorite locations, Octagon Hall up in
Yeah,
Kentucky.
Yep.
that was
That's,
a fun one.
you were where we got the idea for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Right.
That was a
Now,
fun one. I didn't even know about that one. And when we got into it, I was like, man, this is crazy. Like the dude who got shot and died in the walls.
Yeah.
I'll always remember that for some reason.
that history wise, that's an absolutely amazing place. Paranormal wise, it's an absolutely crazy place. Um,
Yeah.
so if you guys ever do some traveling, when the kids are a little bit older,
Oh, we
Octagon
will.
Hall is a place you guys should definitely hit up. So I know you said you kind of had some personal experiences growing up. Like, what's some of the experiences, Steve, you had growing up?
Oh man, I've had a few. I'll tell you two that really come to mind. I remember being in about oh god, fifth or sixth grade, and I was a little troublemaker as a kid. And I actually lived in this area where we are now. It was one of the few times I actually lived here. And I was friends with a couple of neighborhood kids, and there was a girl I had a crush on. And I remember one night we all decided to go over to the school where I went to school, and it's the one out in Cape Canaveral.
Okay.
I don't remember the name of it,
Yeah.
but we had to hop the fences, and I was a delinquent kid, and I remember climbing up onto the roof of the school to smoke pot with my friends. Um, along the way, I don't know if this has any like meaning to anything that happened that night, but we found like I guess now that I'm older, I would recognize it as kind of like a Doc Martin type shoe, but it had like a buckle on it, almost looked like a pilgrim shoe.
Okay.
And when we climbed the building that night, and we were really high though, so that could be a part of it. But I remember like we kept hearing children laughing and like like the sound of like the rubber balls when you're playing Foursquare as a kid, it makes that bounce down. And we kept
Mhm.
hearing that. And as like we all like listened in closer and closer, the lights of the school started to flicker on and off. And man,
Hmm.
I lost it. And I remember just getting off the roof and man, I never ran so fast in my life. And then the next big story I remember after that was I told this on our show, but I was about 21, 22, and it was another party situation, but I was a little older. We were partying. And I remember wandering out to the grounds of this place called Taunton State Hospital, which it's not there anymore, but if you look it up, it was one of the original England like insane asylums, I guess.
Hmm.
And there used to be a beautiful like glass Gothic corridor that went from one building to the next. And that's where I had ended up. And I remember passing out on the ground. And when I woke up, I remember seeing a lady. Well, she wasn't walking. She was like floating in the corridor and she just kind of looked at me. And I didn't like run away or anything. And then she just kind of floated by. And that was it. And I have this deep-seated for love for this location. And I always wanted to be able to go back one day. But all of that original building is now gone.
Oh
They
man.
they mowed it down.
Yeah.
And like there are some buildings from I guess the years when they started to rebuild. Some newer stuff is still up there, but all that original dark history stuff where they used to cage people up and spray them down in the winter and stuff is all
Mm.
gone.
Oh
The
man.
place, if you ever like want a good story, look up Taunton State Hospital. And like there's a lot of stuff there, man. There was like a satanic cult between like the nurses and doctors were in,
Oh shit.
and some
Yeah. It's a crazy place.
some of the first serial killers that they ever heard about went there. They tortured people. They would put them in like what was it, like 3 by 6, I don't know, chain link cages in the winter and strip them down naked and spray them with the hose.
Oh man.
It was just a brutal place, but that one was probably my most memorable experience that I had ever had. And I've had little ones here and there, like at my mom's house, seeing stuff. Definitely at this house.
Yeah.
This house it's haunted, and we see stuff here all the time. Like, but it's nothing like huge. Like I'll be watching TV and I see a shadow go down the
Hmm.
hallway, or I see lots of shadows in our bedroom. It's a lot of stuff like that. It's never anything huge, but it's just enough to like let you know that it's still there.
Yeah, you see more things here in this house, and I've felt more things.
There was that night I heard the voice tell me to wake up, and
Yeah.
I woke up out of nowhere and I had no idea
Oh
why.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, people died in this house, but
Yes.
No shit.
um
Some of my a family member of
Yeah.
mine passed away in this house.
in this
Oh man.
in this room.
Yes.
Oh
We
man.
are recording.
I know Megan's got some sort.
That's what I was speaking saying. I was gonna say, Megan, did you kind of have that fascination as a kid too, or did it kind of develop as you got older?
I have had experiences since I was probably 6 or 7. I was a military brat. We moved around a lot, and when I was from like 6 to 9, I think we lived in Texas,
Mhm.
and we lived on military housing. And I didn't know at the time what it meant, but there was this hallway that led down to all like the one bathroom and all 3 bedrooms. And you'd have to walk past everything to get to my room, which was at the end. And I'd walk down a lot and I'd get, that feeling like you turn off the lights and something's right behind you, but like the lights wouldn't be off. And I would just get that feeling. And I just run down the hallway and run into my room, and it would eventually go away. And so after we moved away and I started thinking about it more into my teenage years, I realized that it was when I passed the bathroom, when I hit that point in the hallway going to my bedroom, was when I would start to get that feeling. So I was probably, I don't know, 16, 17, and I decided to look up the house and see if I could find any like deaths or whatever on the base or in the base housing that we had lived in. And come to find out, there was a colonel who lived in our house years and years before.
Sanders.
I wish. But he ended up committing suicide in the bathroom
Oh man.
of the house that we lived in. And ever since then, I've had a lot of experiences throughout my life. Another vivid one was at his mom's
I knew you were
house.
going to bring that one up.
Yeah. We had just had our oldest son, and I was in the living room putting him in his car seat. We were getting ready to leave. Steven was in the bathroom, and he had the door closed, and I knew it wasn't him coming out because the door stuck to like
It always sticks.
the
It's-
door frame,
yeah.
so it's like when it opens.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard that, so I was buckling the little guy in, and just up towards the left of me, I was facing a wall, but to the left of the wall was like a walk through to the hallway.
Mhm.
And I see somebody start to like walk from the right of the door frame and through the middle, and I looked up, and there was a woman in a white, I will never forget this, a white 3/4 length sleeve like sweater. She had super long brown hair.
That's my girlfriend.
It was like almost kinky, like 80s crimper
Mm-hmm.
style. And then she had just jeans on, and she was just walking, staring at the wall that was in front of her down the hallway. And then she just disappeared. And right after she disappeared, I heard the door open to the bathroom that he was coming out of.
Yeah, to walk forward means you go nowhere. It means you go into a wall and out the
Yes.
other side of the house.
Yes. And she looked like no one I had ever seen in, around, or near that house. Didn't look like his mother at all. And she was gone. We were the only ones home.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Well, I remember you got touched in bed too.
I did. I got touched in bed. I had my name called to me while I was super pregnant and napping. And it was like I could feel the breath on my face. It was just like, Megan, like right in my face. I woke up, sprung up out of bed, and ran around the house, and his mom wasn't even home. Like there was nobody home.
It's
It was just me napping.
It's a creepy house. The stuff happens there all the time. As
Yes.
a matter of fact, my mom will contact us every now and then just to let us know like something else has happened.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
always
man.
something going on. But nobody knows if anything happened in that house.
Yeah.
Oh wow. And having your name called, I've had that happen to me a few times when I lived at my mom's house years ago. Like I would be almost asleep. Like I would be asleep, but I'd be awake
Yep.
and right in my ear, and it would startle me to the point where I'd swing thinking somebody was there.
Yeah.
And of course, there's nobody there. You know, I had my feet pulled in that house. There was a lot of crazy shit I seen in that house and heard in that house. I seen an apparition of a woman in all white in the front yard, just standing there. It was
Wow.
that place was crazy, and I never could figure out the history of it either. But like every one of us that lived there had experienced something in that
Mhm.
house, and it was just crazy. So, your podcast name, For the Booze, who came up with that?
That was him. That
Oh,
was
all right.
all him.
But the way this worked was like I was at work one day and I was just like, all right, well, what could we come up with for paranormal podcast? And I remember writing down all like these kind of cute, funny puns and stuff like that on a piece of paper. And I brought them home and I was like, all right, I like all these. What do you want the show to be called? And we landed on that one. But I can't remember what some of them were, but I remember one of them had ice cream in it. I do
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah.
It-
Well,
There was nothing huge that brought us to that name. It was just, I don't know. It's just, we just landed on it somehow.
yeah, because it's all, like you said, all of them had like almost like a pun spin on them. Like even For the Booze, it could be, scary booze. It could be BOOZ booze, like
Mhm.
alcohol,
Be like, boo.
yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's different and it's unique and it stands out. And if you don't know what the show's about, and just the name in general piques your interest, I'm gonna click on this to see what this is about. So
Yeah.
it works, and then hopefully you have some of them stick around. So
I wish we had some kind of like prolific story behind how we got the name, but it's really, I just wrote a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper and was like, pick one. That's it.
hey, we don't have a cool name how we got a cool story how we got our name either. When I started the team, I wanted the team to have like a quote or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I had each one of our original team members come up with like a saying for the team, and Life Beyond 6 Feet was actually the one that I like the most.
I like that.
And we
Yeah,
never
I
we
really do
never
too.
actually used it for anything, and it always just stuck in my head. I was like, I really like that.
Yeah.
And
It's actually such a good name. I'm surprised nobody else already had a show called it. You know, like it's such a good name.
right, and so when I got to thinking about a podcast and I was talking to Josh about it, I was like, man, I was like, if we actually do this, I was like, I want to call it that. And I was like, it's different, it's unique, and it just always stuck with me. So, like I said, I
Mhm.
don't have no big fancy story on how we got ours either. So,
Maybe we're overthinking it. Maybe nobody really does. Maybe
Yeah.
they just came up with it,
right.
like
Just
sitting
randomly.
just sitting there watching TV, like, what do you think of this name? All right, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know.
All right, so I know you guys got kids. I'm assuming they're all fairly young kids, right?
Yeah.
All right, so when you actually have free time, have you actually thought about going on an investigation anywhere?
Well, we've
Yep.
investigated before.
Oh, have
Uh,
you?
yeah, we
Yes.
we went on our anniversary a few years ago to the St. Augustine Lighthouse,
Oh, wow,
and we got to
nice.
investigate there. And we actually had an experience
We
there, which was
did.
nice. But we were part of a group, and
Hmm.
unfortunately, in the group were some teenagers who were
Oh,
ruthless. They ended up getting kicked out, and after they got kicked out is when we had our experience. But
hmm.
there is. Have you ever been there? Have you ever been there?
Have
No.
not.
Okay, but you know what it is.
Yes.
Okay, well, there's a building on the property, and I guess it was like that was the apartments or something, houses, or
It was like basically like the caretaker house
it was something
at
like
one
that.
point, and they've expanded it to
But
make it
then
a lot bigger.
across from that, next to the lighthouse, there was a chapel,
Hmm.
and
Mhm.
inside the chapel, it was under construction. And I don't even think we had really planned on going in there, but it was the one place where we could be alone. Nobody was in there.
Right.
And I remember we decided we were going to go investigate in there because we wanted to do it on our own.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So we were in there, and I remember we were trying to ask about, I think the daughter.
No, the little girls
Yeah, the daughter. Yeah,
that
that's what I'm talking about.
died. Yeah.
And Megan all of a sudden says, I feel this really cold spot on my leg.
Yeah.
It's been a little while. I'm trying to remember.
I was sitting there and I kept we were asking questions to the girls like, hey, if you're here, like they give you these glow sticks and EMF detectors and stuff. And
Hmm.
we were like, hey, if you're here, do this. And we were trying to bring up stuff from their time, like, hey, did you like, riding the rail cart down to the water?
Which is how they died.
Which is how they passed away. And
Oh,
just trying to get a response for something. And we weren't getting anything. And we were getting ready to go. And I think you had said, let's just give it another minute or two.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of sitting, and all of a sudden I felt this like cold, just
Pocket.
cold air on my leg. So I'm sitting there, and for like the first 20 seconds, I'm like, is the air on? Is the door open? Or like, is the plastic that's hanging over there moving? And just trying to rationalize it in my head. And finally, I'm like, okay, all of that's a no.
Mm.
So I finally looked over at him and I'm like, babe, can you like reach over here and just feel this? And it was from like my upper thigh to my knee.
And I was like, yes, I'd love to grab your thigh. But it was weird because it was like you could literally put your hand in front of it and it wasn't cold. And you could put your hand behind it and it wasn't cold. You could put your hand beside it and it wasn't cold. But it was like this little bubble of
hmm.
cold air. And it wasn't like a little cold. It was like 25 degrees colder than everything else. It was
Wow.
substantial.
And I remember he said it was like sticking it because he just like reached over my lap and put it there. And he said it was like sticking his hand in a cold cloud that was just super concentrated
Yeah.
right there. It was crazy.
And there was been other times like when I was younger, because I've been in the paranormal for a long time. And I remember like, doing the unnoble thing and breaking into old houses with my friends to see if stuff was there.
Us
And
too.
yeah, I had an experience at a house that I guess some really bad stuff happened. I've read a lot of different stories about it, so I'm not real sure what went down there, but bad child abuse and stuff.
Hmm.
And it keeps getting bought and people keep trying to renovate it. And then for some reason they stop and they sell the house and nobody really knows why.
Right.
But we had some like weird experience in there to where we were playing with like the Ouija board. And like
Oh.
I'm not a huge believer in a Ouija board, but the
Mhm.
Ouija board wouldn't stop spelling the word blood. And then we heard this loud crashing noise in a house that had nothing in it.
No shit.
And we were on the it was a second or third floor because it's like a 2 or 3 story house. And I remember my chubby little butt running down 3 flights of stairs into the basement and out the little tiny basement window because that was the only way in or out. And then a couple weeks later, I remember driving by the house and it was in the middle of the day. And I remember looking up at the top window in the room we were at. And I can't tell you for sure what I saw, but I saw a little girl standing in the window. and I never saw it again. It's not like when I rode by another time, it looked like something was there that wasn't. It's the only time that I ever saw anything in that window. And I'll just never forget that. That house still creeps me out. I could drive by it tomorrow. It would still creep me out. And it is still sitting there unrenovated.
That gave me goosebumps.
It's
Man.
over by, remember the Ritz?
Yeah.
It's right over by there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The old Ritz, which is also haunted and can't go in there either.
Sucks.
Yeah. I mean, we see that was, I think that's another reason like we do a podcast is because like we want to investigate.
Mm-hmm.
We really, really want to. And maybe one day we can.
Right.
But since we can't, this is the closest we can get to it, and we want to be part of the paranormal community. So this is what we do. We talk about all the stuff we can find, and we try not to focus just on the well-known places. Like we do them, but we more so want to talk about stuff that maybe people haven't heard about, maybe stuff we haven't heard about.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, we've just did not that long ago the Seven Sisters Inn, which I know a lot of people didn't know what that was. And
Mhm.
we've had a few that we did that we had no idea, but people suggested it and we learned everything we could
Yeah,
in an episode.
That's the fun part. We don't
Yeah.
get, we can't go out and show up at places that we don't know about. We just talk about them. And honestly, it's kind of fun because we can do it at our own leisure and we don't have to go anywhere. We can
Right.
sit in gyms and talk about it.
Right.
Fun. It's our way of being part of the community.
Now, since you say you eventually want to get out there and actually start investigating, one of these days, do you have like a bucket list of places you guys want to hit up?
I'm going to count to 3 and we'll both say the one place that we want to go. Okay. I'm not going to ask you what it is. We're just going to say it at the same time. You ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3.
Waverly
Waverly Hills.
Hills.
Yeah, that one.
I tell you,
that's our number one.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, if you ever get to go there, you will be absolutely blown away.
We were so close one time.
Oh my
we were
God.
in Kentucky.
Yep.
And I was there for a work thing. And we just never got a chance to go. And I really wish we were super close to Bobby Mackey's.
Yep.
We
Mm.
could have went to both. And for
Man.
some reason, we just didn't end up going. And I regret it so much to this day.
It was such a busy work weekend.
Right.
And they actually, allowed me to come. So it was like a little vacation for the two of us. And we had maybe 3 hours total the whole weekend just to sit in the hotel and relax together.
Right.
And that was all we got to do.
I wish we would have went because I want to see Waverly Hills for myself
Oh, yeah.
so
It-
bad.
It is absolutely amazing. I've been 3 different times, and well before I ever established my team, but all 3 times I experienced different stuff every single time.
It seems like everybody who goes there has a story.
And when I went, it was on the the public investigation, so there was a ton of people there, but it's so huge and you can be so separated.
Mhm.
It's basically like you're by yourself.
Yeah.
And so the very first time I went, my mom and my stepdad went with me, and I remember my mom kind of went in as one of those skeptical believers. Like she believed, but she was like, yeah, I don't really know.
Mhm.
That's me.
And when she walked out, it was completely changed. She's like 100% believe in this shit.
Wow.
And then I went back probably 11 months later, and then I went back after that probably 2 months later. So I went 3 times in 13 months.
Wow.
Wow. Man,
And
I want to go so bad.
Mhm.
and I don't know if you guys kind of keep up with anything up there right now. But there's been a lot of drama going on up there right now. Like the owners more or less got kicked out by the historical society, and there's just been a bunch of drama going on right now. But I
Mhm.
think they're fixing to get to where it is going to be back to how it used to be.
I know we posted about and we pushed the donating to the Waverly Hills thing for a while.
Yeah, their petition that they had,
Yeah.
the petition to sign, and we mentioned it on a few episodes.
Yeah, we donated
back
to
to
it.
back to back, and we donated.
Yeah.
And
So
That-
Because we want to be able to go. We want to
Mhm.
be able to go one day. We want to be able to take part in that.
well, see, they say that the historical society still lets people come in and do this and that, but from everything I've read and seen videos on and talked to people that's involved up there, they changed a lot of the history. They told a lot of lies about the history, and it's just it's not what it was.
right, that's
And
not
so-
right.
We did
And-
two episodes on that place. So good luck for them lying to me because I've done my research on Waverly Hills.
Right. And actually last season I had a team on that does a lot of of like volunteering and stuff up there, and they said that that it's fixing to get back to the point where people can go enjoy it how it needs to be enjoyed, even if it's not the paranormal part of it. Just going there and enjoying the history of it.
Yeah.
It's about to be back to how it was, and that's where my entire team wants to go.
Oh yeah.
Like that's like they're all their top spot. My wife's like, I just want to go, and I'm like,
Mhm.
when it gets to that point, that's we're gonna be dropping that $1,200 or however much it costs to do it. So,
Oh man. We'll definitely, if you go there, we're gonna have you guys back on as a whole team, though. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah.
right,
Oh yeah.
man,
Absolutely.
it's doing it with 70 other people there is cool and all. Like, because I said, like you're so spread out, but just to be just you there, just your handful of friends there, it's going to be a totally different experience.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, I have so many things I want to do. Like, the last time I was there, I laid on one of the how what do they call it? Where they put them after they pass away and they put them in the cold box.
Oh, like a
Like the morgue tables.
like a
Yes, like when they put them in the after they've done the
gurney.
autopsy. That yeah, I laid in one of
Yeah.
those where dead bodies were laying.
Hmm.
Walk down the death tunnel. That death tunnel is a pain in the ass.
I
Oh, I
bet.
bet, but I
I
bet it's
bet.
creepy though.
It
Ugh.
was like the first time I went. I walked all the way down, and by the time I got about halfway up, my legs were burning so bad.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
I'm sure.
so
And the steps are huge, aren't they? They're not like regular steps. They're like little platforms.
yeah, it's a ton of them, and it's like all at an angle, and it's a workout.
I think my favorite story about that tunnel is all the people who had to use it as a tornado escape back in the day.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, there
yeah.
was a story of a big tornado that went through there a long time ago, and a bunch of people had to hide down in that tunnel.
Oh, bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So Saint,
I would not want to have to do that.
They probably didn't know it was haunted back then, or they didn't think about it. I don't
right.
know.
So St. Augustine Lighthouse, you guys obviously have hit that place up. Is there any other places down in Florida you guys would like to investigate someday?
In Florida, man, I'd have to think about that. I just want to get out of Florida. I don't even want to stick around for anything in
Yeah.
Florida. I mean, I'd like to go back to St. Augustine and maybe tour the jail. It's not quite as exciting to me as the lighthouse. I think if I had to pick another place in Florida to go, I'd probably go back to the lighthouse.
Hmm.
Yeah. Or travel down and see Robert the doll.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Let's take that back. Yes, I would like to go see
Yeah.
Robert the Doll. I
Yeah,
forgot.
that
Go
would be
down to
really
Key West. Yeah.
yeah, that'd be interesting.
We could go stay at the La Conca, which we
Yeah.
did an episode on,
Yeah.
and go visit Robert the Doll right down the street. I think another place too is up near Ocala was the Ma Barker home where the Barker gang got killed.
Mm.
And that's a pretty big one over there. I'd like to check
Mhm.
that out. And I lived right there for forever, and I never been there.
Oh wow.
There's little places here and there, but I think for the majority of the stuff we really are like dying to see is out of the state of Florida and other states.
Right. So you mentioned Bobby Mackey's a few minutes ago.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
That's another one.
So I'm sure you've probably done, a little bit of research on it and looked into it and stuff. Do you believe that place to be a portal?
A portal? I don't believe it's a portal.
I no. I don't believe it's
I
a
mean, most
portal.
of the stuff that happened there didn't even happen there. It
Right.
happened down away from there,
Yeah.
and they think
Mhm.
that because the blood traveled through the well system. Do I think something's there? Yeah, I believe something's there, but I don't think it's as big as how it's made out to be by a lot of people.
Right. And see that's one of those places like my wife refuses to go to. And I'm like, well, yes, you can't base it on TV.
Yeah.
And I'm
Well,
like, and she's like, I just don't want to go, blah blah. I'm like, she's
well,
like,
tell us this.
she's
We
like,
did the
you can
research.
go.
And the story goes is that I forget his name, but the Carl, the
Mhm.
caretaker, is the one who uncovered the well. And now you don't get to hear this a lot in shows because they don't want to kill the mystery for you. But Carl was, for lack of a better term, insane. He was a bit crazy, and they knew he was crazy.
Yep.
Mhm.
And when he uncovered the well, he is the one who told everybody it was a portal to hell. This wasn't some like Bobby Mackey himself never believed that anything was at Bobby Mackey's. He was a non-believer.
Mhm.
I still don't think he believes, does he?
I
No,
don't believe
I
so.
don't believe so.
They say when you ask him, he'll just kind of smile at you because it brings a lot of business.
Right.
But Carl, the guy who wasn't all there, was the one who told everybody about this. So I would just believe it's an old well. It's just an old well. I don't believe it's a portal to anywhere. I just think it's a well. And I think if we're going to believe everything every insane person tells us, then we're screwed.
Right.
What about you? Do you think it's a portal?
You know, it's just one of those things that if it was, do they really think, do you really think they would allow so many people there?
I think they would. I think they would. But I think the real question is if it really was, then why isn't it affecting more people?
Right. I think my main thing is not the portal part, but the stuff they say there is so demonic that you know it affects people. I'm like, okay, if it was that bad, like you said, it should affect more people.
People
Yeah.
go there and they drink and line dance and have dinner and go and
Right.
to get possessed and kill each other or anything. So,
Right.
and there's a
Now,
lot of people around there that don't even think it's haunted. So
right.
I do
Now,
believe it. Do that.
yeah, I was gonna say I do believe it's haunted. I just don't think it's as bad as some people portray it to be.
I'll say
I
this
agree.
for all the research that we do about the majority of the places in this country is something that people have to remember is that long before structures that you're visiting have been on that land, battles took place there.
Hmm.
Native Americans were killed there. Soldiers were killed there. People died from sickness. So it may not be that Bobby Mackey's is haunted. It just maybe something was left around the land on Bobby Mackey's and it's still there
Hmm.
today.
Right.
I think that's something that a lot of people should remember is that
Mhm.
sometimes it's not always who you think it is. It could have been somebody long before.
Hmm. I think to a degree, like every place is haunted to a degree. It's like you said, they're way before all these buildings were here. There ain't no telling what happened on the land.
Mhm.
You know, you're no telling how many bodies could be underneath your feet right now that you don't even know about.
Right.
Well, I grew up in that town, Ocala, and I remember when we did the research for the Seven Sisters Inn, I had no idea up until I did the research how many people killed in battles there,
Yeah.
like Native American, like Seminole Indian battles and stuff like that, and tons of people were just slaughtered there.
Mm,
And that's the thing is like you don't. This isn't history that people proudly display everywhere. So you never
right.
really know. You never really know until you
Mm-mm,
actually look into it.
right. Now, like you said, you guys do eventually want to investigate. Have you guys done any research on like any equipment you would eventually want to try to get?
Oh yeah. Look, we this is like we know, like we if we had the ability to leave today, we know exactly what we would
We
want.
would be
We
ready.
yeah, we would be ready. We've got it down. We just don't get to do it.
Right. So, what's some of the equipment you guys would want?
I would definitely have, recorders, digital recorders. I think
Yep.
that's paramount. I think EVPs are, in my opinion, are some of the more solid things to pick up,
Hmm.
especially if like I love the spirit box, but at the same time, the spirit box is also you're depending on other stuff coming through. Whereas an EVP, you're hoping that the white noise picks up something. I think I would definitely want a REM pod. I don't know exactly how strong I feel about the REM pod, but I think it's important to have something like that to give
Mhm.
you like I don't know, it just gives it like you can put it somewhere and if something touches it or I don't know, I just think it'd be awesome to have.
Yeah.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun. I think I would have what else would I have if I had to go?
I definitely
Oh,
want a music box.
yeah, the music box
I
is
like the
Oh,
music
box is
box.
creepy.
I've
It
been
is
wanting to get
super
one of
creepy.
those.
Yeah,
I,
They're
they're
super
creepy.
cool.
yeah.
Oh wait, we'd be totally wrong about all this if we didn't say we definitely have cameras. We would definitely have cameras.
Right.
Have to have cameras. That's
Well,
a
and we would need a spirit box. However,
I'm down with the spirit box. I just
I
wouldn't
would
throw all my eggs into that basket,
I
is
think
what
I'd
I'm
only
saying.
want to use it in like an Estes method
Yeah.
setting.
All right. Yeah, I agree with
That
that.
Hmm.
that would be how I would want to use that.
I tell you, we had a wild experience with the spirit box in our last investigation. I don't know if you guys have seen the two little clips I've shared over the last couple of weeks, but we were back at an old jail that we went to a couple years ago, and we actually did our first live stream interview that night. Um, so afterwards, we got to investigate and stuff, and Josh was doing an Estes session in one of the cells,
Mhm.
and beforehand, we're trying to get the spirit box on and realized, oh, the batteries are dead. Well, instead of running back downstairs and changing the batteries, he's like, I'll just use Necrophonic on my phone, practically the same thing. And he's like, I like using it. So I throw the spirit box in my pocket and completely forget about it. So he's sitting there handcuffed and shackled inside the cell.
Oh no, not
Yeah.
that one. Not that one.
And so, he's spitting all this stuff out, and just out of nowhere, we hear a portion of a song.
What?
And I'm like, what the fuck?
On
And
the
it was,
spirit box?
no,
Oh,
no,
okay. Oh wow.
it, uh, like it came just out of nowhere. And it was like about a half a second of I could tell it was a country song. And it said something like just swanging or something like that. And I'm
Mhm.
like,
Okay.
okay, that's a little weird. And so I'm thinking, after the fact, okay, this was say somebody's cell phone. It got turned on in their pocket, whatever. It would have played a lot longer than that.
Oh yeah,
Right.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Like they would have had to pull it out of their pocket, probably unlock their phone, do all this. It probably would have played 6, 7 seconds at least.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Like it was literally like half a second, right?
How old is the jail?
Oh gosh.
Because it's real old.
Yeah.
Because I know
Yep.
back a long time ago, they used to allow prisoners to have harmonicas and guitars and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So that
Hmm.
makes it even creepier.
And so it's going to get even more interesting here in a second.
Oh, yeah.
So, we're all just kind of baffled by that, right? So, a few minutes later, Josh pulls himself out. He's like, "There's a bunch of odd stuff coming through. They're seeming they seem kind of irritated and pissed off." He's like, "So I'm pulling myself out." So we're sitting there, and I'm telling him about the song, and then just out of nowhere, we start hearing the staticky sound of the spirit box. And I'm
What?
like, "What is that?" He's like, "Is that the spirit box?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so then I pull it out of my pocket. I'm looking at it. There's none of the lights are on. None of the numbers are up on the screen.
Mhm.
Like it's not turned on. I'm pounding the power button like it's not turning off. Like we had to physically take the batteries out.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's really weird. So again, my logical thinking afterwards, there was any kind of juice whatsoever left in the batteries, right? Me walking around up there possibly should have caused it to turn on. I was standing perfectly still when I started doing that.
Right.
That's weird.
And my wife pointed something out a couple of nights ago. I was playing the clip for her again, and he's right before that song played. Josh comes through and he says "boys," and then that song says just swinging. She was like, "What if they were referencing somebody that was hung or lynched around here?"
Oh,
Oh,
wow. Yeah, that's
yeah.
pretty creepy.
I was like, I didn't even think about that
Yeah.
because he said "boys" and like right after that piece of that song came through, and it was really weird.
That's creepy.
Crazy. Wow.
That's pretty good evidence right there.
It was, and that later that night, I was doing an Estes session of that same cell. I was using the Necrophonic on my phone, and like it got completely dead quiet. Like none of the sounds were coming through, none of the staticky sound was happening, and like drop of a hat, I break down and I'm just like bawling,
Oh, wow.
like tears strolling down my face, like I'm legit crying, like my best friend just died.
Mm.
And Josh had to pretty much pick me up and drag me out because I didn't want to leave.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
wow. You get affected, huh?
Yeah, it was I mean, it was literally just out of nowhere.
That's crazy.
It was
That's
weird.
crazy. Oh my
So,
God.
We have to go back and look at those. I did actually come across your video today of when the ghost pushed the picture off the wall, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that. That was
Yeah.
pretty cool."
Yeah.
yeah,
And then we watched the blooper reel because it was funny listening to you guys scream.
so, and we went back to that jail back in October, and we did a Estes session in that same hallway, hoping we could figure out who done that, and we kept getting the same name over and over again. We kept getting the name. I think it was Rob. We got it 4 or 5 times, and we kept getting a woman's name too. We got her name 4 or 5 times,
Oh,
Wow.
and I got affected there too. Like I wasn't crying, but like something happened. Um, I was perfectly fine the entire night, and then just out of nowhere, I started feeling sick, started feeling dizzy, like to the
Awesome.
point, I had to drop down to my knee so I didn't fall over,
Oh, wow.
and
Ugh.
lasted about 45 seconds. Stood up, was perfectly fine. A few minutes later, we started playing some gospel music, and right when it started playing, I started feeling that way again. And after that, I was like, we got to get out of here. I was like, I gotta get out for a minute. So we left the camera rolling, and you can hear us walking down the stairs. And it's almost like as soon as we get to the bottom of the stairs, the REM pod in the hallway starts going off.
Wow.
And it went off for, I don't know, I'll probably say 35, 40 seconds. And I'm not a huge believer in orbs,
Yeah.
but like
Neither.
right, like you see this white anomaly come out of the cell and it like comes down and like it kind of disappears into the wall. Like right when it disappears, it turns out the REM pod stops going off.
I think there's times where you can tell orbs are more legit than others. Like a lot of times it
Right,
just looks like dust or a bug, but then there's occasionally the one where you're like, that's neither one.
right.
That's something different.
Mm-hmm.
And
So
those ones I like, but I feel like everybody jumps on the orb thing too quick.
right. And so if y'all get bored one day, I've got that whole entire Estes session on our YouTube. It's about 40 minutes long.
Oh yeah, we'll watch it tonight.
Yeah, we'll
He
definitely
he
check that
was
out.
it was and that was really the only thing that happened that night. Which when you have something like a picture being slung off a wall, you can't if you go back, you can't go in expecting that to happen again.
Right.
Well, that's the thing is that paranormal stuff it's not automatic. It's like dealing with people because these are the remnants of people. It's sometimes
Right.
stuff's going to happen and
And
sometimes
so, like I said, that was pretty much the only thing that really happened that night. But that place alone, that's a place I would suggest you guys if you ever go traveling to investigate. I would make that as one of your top spots for Tennessee
maybe we'll check it out. Maybe
Nice.
we'll do an episode on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
because
Feel like it.
it's got a interesting backstory. Like a former sheriff was murdered on the front porch. Um, they would have lynch mobs come in and drag prisoners out and lynch them up in the street.
That's no good.
Ooh.
Um, what else was some of the stuff that happened there? They had one of the, I don't know if he was a sheriff or just a deputy. He was involved in the drug cartel. He got
Oh,
he got busted and arrested for all that. Actually, the picture that flew off the wall, that was an article about that officer.
in
No
Tennessee,
way.
Yeah,
this stuff is going down in Tennessee. I just think of
yeah.
country music.
So yeah, it's got
Maybe
a
some moonshine.
Yeah, maybe some moonshine.
it's got a really interesting backstory. Um, um. So other than Waverly Hills, what's some places you guys want to hit up? Because I know you guys got some good places.
Yeah. What else comes to mind that you would think of? I know Bobby Mackey's, but we just talked about that. That's one of them. I would like to go see. I would actually one of the places I'd like to go is out of the country, but I'd like to go to Cove Island,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Cove Island and Spike Island out there where the prison
Hmm.
is. But that whole town has a pretty rich history of haunted stuff because
Right.
of the Titanic
Mm-hmm.
of all things.
Yeah.
Um, I think
If we're staying out of the country, I'd want to go either the Hellfire Caves or Loftus Hall.
yeah, Loftus Hall would be cool. I also think the Turner Ingersoll House up in Massachusetts would be
Ooh,
pretty
that's a
pretty
good
awesome
one.
to see, and maybe even go down the street to where the witch trials happen. And it's not that I think that any of that stuff was for real satanic or witchcraft. I just
Mhm.
think a lot of people died there.
Yeah.
I think that would be neat.
I think I'd want to go to the Savannah Theater.
Yeah, Savannah Theater would be pretty sweet.
Hmm.
That place has a lot of stories too.
It does.
Man, what else? We're terrible at on the spot.
We are. Um, hmm.
Where would you like to go, Megan? She doesn't know.
I don't know. I'd have to give me a
I
second.
think I'd like to go to Octagon Hall.
Yeah.
I think
That-
that would be a cool spot to
Yeah.
visit.
Man, I tell you that Octagon Hall. We plan on going back there probably this summer. We was actually just up there. The night we did that investigation of that jail, we stopped by up there for a little bit just to hang out and It's something about it, man. I don't know.
Ooh,
Um,
Crescent Prison.
Oh, that's a good
We
one.
just did an episode on Crescent, and I think I would really like to go there.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think Crescent would be very interesting. And we actually had a listener reach out to us, tell us about him going. He's been there like 4 times, and he says it's very haunted there. Like he's been there 4 times and had experiences 4 times, and with a group of people. But it's an awesome place because they say, they call it a minimum security prison, but it
Mhm.
has some really bad people there
Hmm.
and lots of weird. It's like a mix of demonic, but then lighthearted spirit stuff at the
Yeah.
same time.
Right.
It's really cool. It's just a really cool place.
Right. That's up in what? Was it New York?
Crescent is, oh man, I don't know if I remember where it's at. Was it in New York?
I think it might be New York.
I want
Yeah,
to. That's where I'm thinking it's New York. So,
wait,
but I have a whole freaking bucket list of places, and I'm surprised you guys didn't say any of them. Trans Allegheny, you know, that's like my top spot.
That's a good
Um,
one.
um, Eastern State Penitentiary, Missouri State Penitentiary.
I mean, we know about those. I don't know. I just it's so huge. I don't know if I want to like I'd go.
Yeah.
I would go. I'm like I'm not saying I wouldn't go, but I don't know if it would be top of the list, but it would be a place that I would end up eventually. I'd want to go to.
I think I'd want to go to the Stanley Hotel.
Yeah,
Stanley would be cool.
Yeah.
Um,
I would want to go there just to stay there. I wouldn't even have to
Yeah,
investigate.
right.
I wouldn't even have to investigate.
Right.
I think another place that we had done recently that I didn't know about, but I would really like to go to now is that Desjarnet Sanitarium.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know if you listened to it, but we did an episode recently on a place called the Desjarnet Sanitarium, and it's up in Virginia. And I had never heard about it, and a buddy of mine actually suggested it, so we did it. He's another podcaster, and we found out through doing this that the supposedly the spirit of an evil Nazi loving doctor haunts the place,
Oh wow.
and the whole building was based around early Nazi eugenics program, and like people were just like they were they were treated like lab rats there. And like they were doing
Mm.
some weird stuff like injecting the blood of hyper children into children with depression. And like
Ugh.
they were basically rendering you unable to have children if you showed any signs of like anything wrong with you at all. You could have been poor, it didn't matter.
Mm.
And they would do stuff like that. But supposedly that place is really haunted, but it's also very haunted by the ghost of asbestos. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
Super gross.
that wouldn't be good.
I don't know. I think there's just a lot of cool places around the country, but it's hard to say like bucket list. I think once I got over and actually went to Waverly Hills and Bobby Mackey's, I
Yeah.
could probably concentrate more on where I want to go after that.
Right.
I mean, if somebody says, "Where do you want to go?" I'm always going to be like, "I just want to go to Waverly. I
Hmm.
just want to go to Waverly."
Yeah,
That's
for
all. That's
sure.
it.
It's you'll absolutely love it whenever you get to go. And hopefully, like I said, hopefully they get it to where it's back to normal and you guys can eventually get up there because I'm telling you,
Crescent's in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, that's right.
Well,
Yeah, I think I don't know. Now you're making me think of like places I want to go because there's just a lot of cool places.
There really is. It's one of those things that if I had the time and the money, I would be traveling all the time.
all the time.
There's a
Yeah.
place that
Right.
maybe might not be a bucket place, but I want to go because I've heard it's not haunted and it is haunted. The Shanley Hotel.
Oh,
I've heard
yeah.
mixed, very mixed, and
Hmm.
that's in New York.
Yeah.
I've heard very mixed feelings on that place.
Yeah.
We had Eastern State group come on our show, and they told us it was not haunted. It was the biggest waste of a time trip. But then everything else you read, if you go to like TripAdvisor, people who stayed there, everybody swears it is haunted.
Hmm.
So I think I would like to go there just because it's a super cool looking hotel.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very old and cool looking. But B, I'd like to see if there's any merit to all these hauntings that they have. I mean, I could see it being haunted for
Right.
sure.
All right. Couple more questions before we wrap this up. You do a lot of your first few episodes, you did on these paranormal shows. Like, what is your personal favorite show right now?
Right now,
Right now.
Destination Fear.
I agree. Yeah,
Mine-
I'd say out of the TV shows, that's probably my favorite one.
Yes.
yeah, that's our favorite one too. Actually, that's
Is it?
my favorite one is Destination Fear. My wife's favorite is Kindred Spirits.
Oh, that
I
Megan loves that
really
show.
like Kindred Spirits.
The thing I like about Destination Fear is that they're not necessarily going in to just be paranormal investigators. They're just
Right.
going to like test their limit of how scary is it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The paranormal just comes along with it, but there are parts of that show that definitely feel scripted, but there's a
Oh
lot
yeah.
that doesn't. But I mean, it's a TV show, so of course it's got to have some kind of structure.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. So is there any that you don't care for?
Of course, of course. First and foremost would be Ghost Adventures. You know, I was super huge into that show back in the day, but
Hmm.
the more they do, the less reputable they seem.
Right. I mean, I still watch it, but like you said,
I'll watch it.
Oh, we
it-
watch it all the time.
you know, as it went on, like it's just now everything they do isn't a ghost. Now everything is demonic.
Oh yes,
And I'm
everything.
like, and something else that really irritates me is they don't leave the West Coast anymore.
Yeah, that's true. That's because that's where they live and they don't have to. I think the thing that irritates me the absolute most about that show is if anybody feels anything, Zach feels it 100 times more.
Hmm.
You know, if you're like, oh, I don't think I feel very good, he'll have a seizure or something. Like he has to outshine because
Right.
over the years he's kind of tried to build this thing up around him that he's a medium all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know, and I just don't believe anything he says anymore. Nothing. I believe
Yeah.
nothing.
I would like to go to his museum though.
Oh, I want to go.
Oh, for sure.
That's actually one of the places because we're supposed to be moving out to Utah soon.
Oh
And,
wow.
yeah, and it's
Then
not
that's-
that far from there, so I definitely want to take a trip over there and check out the museum.
That's like a huge move, like clear across the country.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's what we're wanting though. We want to get out of Florida. We don't really like it here.
Right.
We've always, since we met, we both wanted to end up in the mountains.
Yeah.
Right.
And I ended up having a job opportunity out there. And we were just going to throw a dart at the map and cross our fingers for mountains and make it work. But we figured, why not go where we have an actual job offer?
Right. Well,
So
that's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
it's gorgeous.
So, all right, guys and gals. Actually, there's only two of you, so guy, gal. I really enjoyed having you guys on. You guys are always fun to talk to, and
Thank you. Thank you
we
for having
enjoyed
us on.
This was fun.
even when we're just like chatting over Twitter here and there, so it's guys are always fun to talk to. So,
Well, we would like to extend to you guys. Maybe we could have you guys come back on and hear about the stuff you guys have been getting into since we talked to you last.
oh yeah, like I said, I can get with Josh and we can come back on. Like I said, we have a few more team members since we last were on the show. I think now we're up to when we were on the first time we only had 4. Now we're up to 8.
Well,
Nice.
any of them that would like to come on and talk, we would love to have you guys on and hear about some stuff.
Right. I could probably talk everybody into it but my wife. So
Okay. Fair enough.
That's fine. She wasn't there last time. All right.
right. Like I said, we're up to 8 now, and there's the potential of adding maybe 3 more.
Oh, wow.
Which if it's a small location, that's kind of a downfall with being so many people. But when it's a big location, that's not a bad thing. Plus, it helps cover cost of everything,
Yeah.
and so. But yeah, we're grown, and since we was last on, we've been in a magazine twice now, and
I saw that.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
saw that.
yeah, we saw that, yeah.
Congratulations.
that was kind of a mind blowing moment when all that happened. So
Actually noticed today that your YouTube channel, you guys have like 1.13 thousand followers now.
yeah, we've hit the 1K mark.
Nice.
So that's why I've been trying to put out more content because they say the more you put out, the more, I guess, it'll bring in. I mean, I've still got. I just now released that Estes session from Scott County, and we did that back in October. I've
Wow.
got Rose Opera House to go through, which we did in December. I've got our last investigation to go through back in January, and then we got one tomorrow night. So I'm like 3 investigations behind already. So
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we're actually talking about making a little move over to and doing some YouTube videos based around like what we do on our
Right.
show.
right.
Just to try to get some more people to find out about us.
Right. Well, this this video portion will go on the YouTube as well.
All right.
Nice.
So we upload all the video portions to our YouTube, which actually, believe it or not, has gotten more, I guess, views and listens than the actual streaming formats has.
It's a good podcast, man. Really, like I wouldn't
So-
just tell you that. Like
Yeah.
it's a good show, and I enjoy it.
Well, I
And
appreciate it.
I wish I would have done my hair. I don't have any hair. It's
Yeah.
fine.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is Steve and Megan from For the Booze podcast. Thank you guys for coming on, and we'll catch everybody next time.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good one.